Thank you once again for joining us today at Eastern News 24. I see the bike and konye chiri ya zelo. I see no bossing keta mana na inama. Na ya dike chinecha ada agwagwo. Otu ai kwuru otu akwa ya dịrịrị. Ise. Dịka o si dị n'ụbọchị uruchi nketa wetara ya bụ ozi n'iru akwụkwọ na Eastern News 24 gbasara maka ya bụ ife na-eme n'obodo nọ n'ime ya. Anụ nwere onwe ndị Igbo na-azọ. Ozi eji maka ya wee ebe bụ according to one of the Biafran activists wetara ya bụ ozi. As he quote, Donald Trump government, House of Congress, pressures Nigeria to release Nnamdi Kanu, Justice James Omotosho, G3, over Trump's order. Here are the news in details. I will tell you in one of the special broadcasts today. Gente of Mofma, Ibomane Gente. I guess here before the year Nine, the Biafran activists will tell you, but Stamaka. The Trump government and the House of Congress, the pressure of an amount on the Nigerian government to release Nnamdi Kanu. All right, over to you, sir.
Likewise, when Trump speaks, Nigeria obeys. At this point, I want you all to start giving praises to the God of Biafra. And I want you to show your appreciation to God's own country, America. Because the President of America, President Donald J. Trump, has done it again. I won't be the one to break this one, hence I'm calling on a comrade, someone we have come to know in this platform, a man who was there during the Biafran War, a man who suffered kwashoko during the Biafran War, a man who saw his mother, sister, siblings go through hell during the Biafran War. He's here to bring this news to the Biafrans that from the 6th, 7th, and 8th of this month, we shall have that good news we're waiting for about our leader Nnamdi Kanu. Hence, without any much further ado, I present to you all the Biafran golden child, the real Biafran golden child, to bless this platform. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're hearing my voice from. This is the Biafra golden child, and today is, the 4th day of May 2025. And I'm super glad, very glad, immensely happy, to interact with you today. Hope your Sunday is turning out good. Hope you're praying for yourself and for Biafra. Hope that this month is stimulating and encouraging and motivating as it should. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Biafran lovers, it's a thrill always to communicate with you. Let me say right now that every time I talk about Biafra, every time I talk of issues concerning Biafra, every time I create awareness of issues happening in Biafra, it gives me a great joy inside my heart, joy inside my life. It brings light into my life. It brings light into the darkness. It shows, it empowers me. It motivates me that there's a light after the darkness, light at the end of the tunnel. Ladies and gentlemen, may not know what I'm saying, but if you are my age, if you lived at my time, if we were born when I was born, when we suffered, when we were direct victims of the Biafra Civil War, 1967, 1968, 1969, 1970. If you were born when it was difficult, to close your eyes because of bombardments from every corner. If you were born when you could not access food, when lizards, wild geckos, roaches, even some ants, big ants that we called nte. I don't know how many of you remember that. Grasshoppers. These were special delicacies. At a point, they were so sweet, they were the only source of protein. Unfortunately, they were depleted because, of course, people were running every day into the bush. As the bombardments were coming, people were running into the bush. And so these animals were equally either trodden upon or they too ran away for safety. and so it became scarce. If you were born when I was born, when children had massive heads, big tummies, tiny bones, tiny bodies, protruding tummy that they call kwashoko. If you saw people die, I mean a family with 4 children, husband, wife, and 4 children, with his aged mother and father, and they wake up in the morning the next day and the child had died. And of course, they wanted to make sure they move that child away so that whatever killed it, whatever sickness, was it the kwashoko? Was it the loss of food? Was it the sicknesses that had no cure, no medicines? Because of course, the lands had been barricaded. The air is a no-go area. The sea was totally cut off. There was no help from anywhere. No help from anywhere. And so people were left to be deleted. Ladies and gentlemen, if you grew at this time, when every other day is a burial day, every other day is a funeral, this child is buried, this old man is buried, this uncle is buried, somebody committed suicide because, of course, he didn't understand what had happened to him. He was a civil servant in Lagos, and then he had to run. He was a civil servant in Kanu. He had to scamper for safety. He had to run down, and every other day is bombardment. He watched his father killed. He watched the mines. The bombs get his mother. And so he committed suicide because he felt there was no tomorrow for him. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you grew up at this time, when this was how you were, when you were born, you could not suck your mother's breast, you couldn't get breast milk because, of course, your mommy was malnourished. Some of us were born and our mothers were declared DOA, dead on arrival of the baby. Some of us never even saw our mothers. Some of us were trained by our grandmothers. And when you experience these things, ladies and gentlemen, you begin to know why I'm concerned, why I'm persistently interested in issues concerning Biafra. When I talk about Biafra, I'm not trying to eulogize Biafra. I'm not in any way trying to praise any personality, because I've said it here in one of my audios that Biafra is not about personalities. Biafra is not about any other person. Biafra is a way of life. Biafra is an ambition of the people. Biafra is a mission, Zion-oriented mission. Biafra is a religion. Biafra is a society. Biafra is a redeclared United Sovereign State of Biafra. Ladies and gentlemen, don't feel offended when I come every other day, when I make audios every other day. We're not doing it for any gain, but we're doing it because we are survivors. We saw the darkness. We saw the death. We were living at times of sorrow and pain. We were living at times of poverty and lack. We were living at times of bombardment every other day. If you survived every other day, it was a miracle. So, ladies and gentlemen, this man, you hear his voice every other time. Maybe you think he's a man who is interested in anything. I am not interested in anything. I'm super comfortable. I've built my career. I mean, I don't want to disclose exactly what I do, but I'm a super successful, career-oriented professional. But it hurts me. Why I decided to undertake this job, why I decided to undertake, this passion, it's because I want people to know what has happened. Why is Biafra? Why is Biafra? Why is Biafra current, even in 2025? Why must we still talk about Biafra? Because a whole lot of people don't know Biafra. Our Igbo brothers who are rich today, opulent today, who splash money on the pages of newspapers, who go through all social media splashing billions. They don't know what Biafra is. Possibly they were not born then. Possibly they haven't read the history books. Because, of course, history has been removed from our schools. Possibly no uncle has told them. Possibly no auntie has told them. Possibly they have just developed dementia. They can't remember. But ladies and gentlemen, it will be a curse on me if I don't continue to talk Biafra, if I don't continue to talk about the plight of the Igbo man, if I don't continue to be vociferous, to proclaim, to enunciate, and to propagate the philosophy of Biafra. So this morning, the 4th day of May 2025. I'm sorry if you don't like my voice. I try as much as possible to sound the way it is. Sorry, my voice might sound somehow. Yes, we're widely traveled. We've studied here and there. Yes, we've broken even, like I said. We survived. We are survivors. Yes, we've gone around the world. Yes, but still we're here. We're here to bring the message of Biafra, the message of emancipation to our people. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get bored hearing my voice. Don't get tired hearing me talk. But the truth must be told. We must call a spade a spade. The Igbo man, the Biafra man has suffered in the hands of this zoo called Nigeria. There was a deliberate program to eliminate us. There was a program, a program of genocide, a proclamation of genocide on Biafrans between 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. And so when I talk about Biafra, do not be tired. Do not say he has come again. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, I will go to the audio of this morning. This morning's audio is very, very important. When you listen to it, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your associates, because gradually, 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 sense is coming. Sense is coming. Gradually, gradually, for whatever it is worth, for whatever it is worth, sense is coming to play. Yes, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to tell you that today's audio is very, very significant. Yes, very, very important. You know, you listen to it, you tell your wife, you, you let your children listen to it too. Let your friends listen to it. Ladies and gentlemen, is a big one. It's a blast. Take it from me, it's a blast. When the last audio came out, when we saw marksmen, when we talked about the gangster paradise, when we talked about people who were coming as witnesses for the defense council, I mean, people who the federal government applied to the judge states, Justice James Omotosho. They said, we want our witnesses masked. This men, if their face is shown, if they are known, if their voice is heard, their lives may be threatened. Some of them have worked in DSS. They have to go by AKA. Please, justice, permit marksmen in the court today. Ladies and gentlemen, the trial of our maximum leader, Nnamdi Kanu, has broken a historical, has broken the history, has made a history in the courts in this country, the Federal High Court. For the first time, gangsters, masked men, we have been introduced, we have been permitted to be accepted. Yes, masked men were allowed to be witnesses. Masked men were legally accepted to have their evidences documented, and then for them to be allowed. Gangster paradise existed in the court, in the court of justice, a court of law, because of Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't get that, we did say here last few days, because of the experience of the 2nd of May, we did say here that yes, a lot is going to happen again. Because on the 29th of April, we saw the marksmen come out alive, come out live and direct. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 2nd of May, of course, some great things happened. Yes, maybe you didn't remember, we told you that the 47th president of America was interested in the trial of Nnamdi Kanu, because the whole world was suddenly, the whole world was flabbergasted, highly, highly flabbergasted. The whole world watched with bated breath how masked men, gangsters, hooded people, we are accepted as witnesses in a case of terrorism, a case of felony charge against none other than a peace-loving, really deeply religious man of peace, a man who said, my people have suffered enough. My people have suffered enough. It's time to give them, grant them their wish. If you don't want them in the country called Nigeria, then grant them perpetual opportunity, amnesty to move into their own, give them the leeway to move into their own country. Let them go to Biafra. If you cannot guarantee their life, the safety of their life and property, if you cannot guarantee them growth and development, if you cannot guarantee them doing their business legitimately, freely, without encumbrances, without triple taxations, without quadruple taxations, if you cannot stop making life unbearable for them, if you cannot continue to treat them like second fiddle, if you are not remorseful for the number of, Biafrans who died between 1966, 67, 68, 69, 70, let my people go. That was what Mazen Nnamdi Kanu said. That was his sin. That was his crime, because he dared to say, let my people go. Enough is enough. If you don't want them, if you don't need 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 them, let them go. That is the crime. And today they're charging him for felony. They're charging him for terrorism. Meanwhile, we saw other areas, other regions in this country. We saw the Sunday Igboho of the Southwest, who came out vigorously pursuing an Oduduwa Republic, saying it right even in the media, right in the full glare of the public, all across the mass media, saying, look, the Yoruba Republic is time. If we can't access the presidency anymore, if we cannot rule this country anymore, if you don't want us to be, then grant us Oduduwa Republic. He came all out. And the federal government, of course, the zoo arrested him. But what did they do? They treated him with kid gloves. They tried him. The trial didn't take too long. And they granted him. They said, no, this man has done no wrong. Of course, the justice is there. The judges then washed their hands like Pilate and said, walk away. You're free. We pardon you. You have not in any way infringed on the on the rights and privilege of anyone. You are not guilty of terrorism. You are not guilty as charged. You are a free man. They granted him total amnesty. And he's a free man today. Sunday Igboho is a free man. In fact, I heard recently he's trying to contest for a governorship position. Probably come the more talked about 2027. Ditto to the north. We have the Boko Harams, we have the Fulani jihadists, we have the herdsmen who are herding their cattle, carrying AK-47 and sophisticated weapons. We have herdsmen whose mission is to completely destabilize, delineate, if not completely Islamize the South. We know of the heinous activities in Plateau State, in Benue State, in Enugu State, in Ebonyi State, in Imo State, in Anambra State, in Osun State. They are killing daily in Ondo State. They have depopulated Benue State. And yet, when these people are arrested, when the Boko Haram, the Fulani jihadists, the Meta Allah are arrested, what happens next? Ladies and gentlemen, they are tried, pardoned, and granted amnesty. And it didn't end there. It doesn't end there. The next thing you hear, they're given an option. Since you know how to pull the trigger, since you know how to use AK-47, since you know how to bomb, come on, bro. Come on, join the armed forces. Come on, join the armed forces of, this country and help us eliminate other militants, other insurgents. Help us catch the kidnappers. Ladies and gentlemen, these guys come into the army. They are recruited, they are paid, they are trained to join the army. And every time the army wants to get to Sambisa Forest, every time the army is chasing the militants, chasing the insidious people, the insurgents, every time the country is chasing, the soldiers are chasing these Boko Haram people. These same people who have been pardoned, these same ones who have been granted amnesty, quickly gives the They give a retinue. They give the every plan that should have been coded, that should have been secret. They pass it on to their brothers because, of course, we know blood is thicker than water. They pass it on to their fellow Boko Haram, their trainees, their trainers, their leaders in Boko Haram camp. And of course, every effort of Nigerian armed forces is completely, totally derailed, and the soldiers are killed like cattle, killed like mere dogs, killed like birds. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria has been losing its armed forces, highly trained personnel, either in the air forces, in bombardments, in land fight, because of these insurgents who are granted amnesty. You cut Boko Haram people, you grant them amnesty, you put them in Nigerian armed forces, and they become your Waterloo. They become your Waterloo. Ladies and gentlemen, this audio of this morning is simple and clear. Donald Trump, the 47th President of America, the European Union Parliament, the European Union leaders, German leaders, leaders from advanced countries watched with bated breath the way marksmen came. Marksmen came into the federal high courts and they were accepted as witnesses and they gave evidence. They brought in their evidences, were recorded, and they had 4 suitcases that were kept as exhibits. Of course, the whole world watched with anger and frustration. They didn't believe that Nigeria has descended from the zoo, has descended from the black, that shithole. They didn't believe that Nigeria could become a gangster's paradise, not even within the judiciary. And so the 47th President of America sent a direct message to Emilio Kanu. Ladies and gentlemen, I had it. I may not want to disclose my sources. The marksmen will know who they are at the appropriate time. Their identities will be fully disclosed. But I want to let you know that the 47th President of the United States, the man who has been regarded as a China as a bull in a China shop, came out vigorously and told Emilio Kanu, I think it's about time you do the right thing. Enough is enough of this charade. Enough of this facade. Enough of this orchestration of the lowest level of human oppression. Enough of this clueless governance. Enough is enough. Nnamdi Kanu has done no wrong. Nnamdi Kanu was illegally, was against internationally recognized standards, human practices. Rendition from Kenya. I think it's about time you do the right thing, or else we'll wade in the big stick. Or else we'll be wading the big stick. Sanctions will begin to pour like water on Nigeria. And by the time we're done with you, including releasing your CIA files, excluding releasing your CIA files, even going back to the so-called University of Chicago and Chicago State University. By the time we are done with you, bro, Donald Trump told Emilio Kanu, by the time we're done with you, bro, you'll be looking for a hole to hide. I think we've seen enough of this rubbish. Stop it right away. Stop it right away, or else, bro, you have yourself to blame. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you here right now that the message sank. And the first thing Emilio Kanu did was give a shout out to Justice James Omotosho. Ladies and gentlemen, Justice James Omotosho became very jittery. His principal has told him, Emilio Kanu has called him, be through with this man. I don't want to be through with Kanu. Be done with him. I'm tired of this name, Nnamdi Kanu. I'm tired of everything about him. Brother, take it like hot charcoal in your hands. Take it like hot charcoal. Yeah, like I said, Emilio Kanu put a call to Justice James Omotosho and told him, hello, the die is cast. Be true with someone. Be true with Nnamdi Kanu right away. Let this thing not exceed let it not exceed this week. Please let this trial end. I don't want anything that would jeopardize 2027 and my ambition for 2027. I don't want anything that will make you know who he is. This bull in a China shop descend on me. I have to be very careful. This is a dangerous moment for us. Please, be rid of that man. Be rid of him any way you can. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to tell you that yes, during the commencement again, when the trial met, yes, on 2nd May, Friday, 2nd May 2025, Justice James Omotosho said, look, Chief Kanu Agabe, 2 times attorney of this nation, I don't want matters of Kanu to drag more than necessary. I want to do it fast. And so I'm not going to postpone, adjourn this trial more than necessary. I want these dates to be concurrent. I want the next trial, this court to be adjourned till the 6th. We'll continue on the 7th, and then finally, we should be done with it on the 8th of May. These 3 days, 6, 7, 8. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I can hear you say 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 8 of May have become a date that Nigeria and Nigerians will never forget in their life. Yes, they have touched the tiger by the tail. They thought they could intimidate the Biafran. They thought that in the Igbo were finished. They thought Nnamdi Kanu would be intimidated by masked betrayers who call themselves marksmen, DSS people. We know who they are. We know who they are. Yes, we may not want to say them now, but we know who they are. Ladies and gentlemen, suddenly, Nigeria is jittery. It's jittery. They're afraid. Because, of course, James Hadley Chase told us in one of his epic novels that the guilty are afraid. The guilty are afraid. Ladies and gentlemen, Nnamdi Kanu is not afraid. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, Chief Kanu Agabe during his, cross-examination of the witnesses, the masked hooded witnesses, the gangster witnesses, asked them, you said you saw personal belongings of a man who was traveling from one place to another. You caught him at Golden Tulip Hotel in Lagos. All those things you said you saw, Mr. Marksman. Was there anything, like AK-47 rifle? No. Was there anything like bombing apparatus or bomb manufacturing apparatus? No. Was there anything extraordinary that you think could make him mass, kill people or destroy people or in any way terrorize anybody? And this masked witnesses said, no. In your view, do you think Nnamdi Kanu is a terrorist, is a killer? And the masked man, the gangster said, no, but we've heard that he has other associates. People like Simon Ekwanjoku. We heard he has other associates, who are his hitman. Chief Kanu Agabe asked, can you in any way prove any of this? He said, no, but we read in social media that Simon Ekwa will soon be extradited to Nigeria. Yes, we heard in social media that Nnamdi Kanu is the leader of the IPOB and Biafra separatist group. Ladies and gentlemen, you can imagine. They began to stutter. Men began to stutter. Men began, they developed all of a sudden, people who were great speakers, orators became stutterers. They stuttered. They became stammerers. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to bore you further. The truth about the matter is that, yes, finally, yes, Donald Trump international observers, presidents of, international recognized bodies have told, uh, Emeloko, put your acts together, don't push us to the wall. You have acted in a manner that is bereft of truth, bereft of law, the rule of law. You have shown that you are not a respecter of law and rule of law. Please, we want justice, equity, and fairness to prevail. We don't,
ndị be anyị gwadalụ nenu dịka unu si wee na-esore n'ụbọchị uhuruchi nke taa na Eastern News 24 ka efu were ikwu gbasịta maka ya bụ ife ndị a niile aji maka wee bịa n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke taa dịka anyị si kwuo unu nkwa na gị na-ewetara ya bụ ọpdeti gbasịta maka nwere onwe ndị Igbo na-azọ ndị na-eme n'obodo anyị nọ n'ime ya unu anụgo n'iko si wee gbata wee kwuru anyị ga-alapụ unu ka unu rie atụ ya bụ ife anyị ji maka ya wee bịa n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke taa ka anyị mara efu nche n'ụdị nke unu mgbanụ ka emesịa n'ụmụnne